But thanks for taking the time to join me today. With the pandemic wreaking havoc on our lives, it seems like email is one of the few ways we can get in front of an audience that's gone all digital. Now, of course, we have social, and I'm announcing a social media webinar targeted mainly at the localities and destinations in the next week or so. But for now, let's dive into email. For those I haven't met, my name is Patrick King, and I'm the founder of Imagine. We're a digital marketing and branding agency with offices in Northern Virginia and Richmond and Norfolk, Virginia. Our work is highly research driven, which you'll probably be able to tell from the way we go through this presentation. Today's talk is broken into three main parts. We'll go pretty deep into content considerations, and then we'll jump over to segmentation, automation. Then we'll wrap up with how to manage and grow a healthy list and keep the ISPs happy. Everything I'm going to cover today is platform agnostic. You'll be able to do everything I cover today on your desired platform, but we're a MailChimp partner and choose to use either that or HubSpot for our own clients. So you might see a screenshot or two pulled from one or both of those platforms. Okay, content strategy. It's the core of an effective email marketing campaign. And as I said, we're going to dive a little deep into this since it probably makes the biggest difference in the success of your email marketing program. And it starts with knowing your audience, or rather audiences. The days of sending those spray and pray email blasts to a large group of people, those days are over. There's just too much inbox filler out there. So we have to do our research to make sure that every email that we send has impact. Too many unopened emails can actually hurt your deliverability and direct your email straight into spam folders, or more often, just have them rejected by ISPs entirely. So each email does count. Now, we do this through persona development, which is like taking sections of your total audience that may have common characteristics and building those little sections into specific identities. For those that have seen a webinar I've done, I like to refer to this pretty often. This is a persona building tool that we use in the early stages of campaigns here at Imagine. It helps us determine the needs, the values, desires, and ultimately what fulfillment means to each type of customer of an organization. It also helps us determine where, when, and with what type of messaging we can best communicate with them. For today's purposes, we're going to use Working Wife Wendy. You'll see here that I may not be going with a specific organization or business. We deal with a lot of localities and associations, and it's often a more complex challenge. So I'll use, we'll say, a visitor to a new town during a pandemic, which is a huge challenge. So let's really test our approach. So we know that we know from here what Working Wife Wendy's goals or objectives are. A safe day out for her family, a road trip to a small town with shops, and a nice restaurant for lunch, right? Biggest challenges are social distancing, budgeting, getting time away from work, and her son is a delightfully picky eater. So we're going to come back to this persona, but when I say each type of customer, when I talk about like each segment, let me illustrate for a second. Every industry, every business sells to more than one type of consumer. A major B2B industry like construction will have some obvious personas, groups that value certain things more than others. The developer is going to be more concerned about long-term investment potential of a space, while a jurisdiction may be more concerned about the building being up to code. If you run an association or a nonprofit, you may have different types of sponsors, members, donors, and so on. And for the purposes of our previous persona, Working Wife Wendy, we'll look at the challenges of a destination, and there are a lot of things to consider there. Each of these groups has different motivations. Each little segment of persona has different levels of involvement. They have different desired outcomes. So it's important from the jump to create separate personas within your audience. Now, where you get all this data on where they're most active or what type of content they care about and so on, mainly online. But also speaking with the people on your front line, the people that, if you're a small town, people to talk to the shop owners. If you're an association, maybe you're VP of membership. They can all give you insights to things that round these out. These are some common platforms and where you can get a lot of the information to build out your personas. For financial history, of course, there's QuickBooks or a conversation with a finance department. But these are just platforms. I'm sure that everyone on the call has like industry publications that help as well. Now that, with all that data, you can have a clearer vision of your new customers, their needs, their activity, their preferences. We're now going to place them all into a customer journey that provides the environment for your email marketing. It takes these people from being completely unaware, possibly cynical, to becoming a delighted and voluntary promoter of your organization. And this is all important in determining the content of not just your first email, but every single one you send. Ta-da! This is the trusty sales funnel, marketing funnel, customer journey, workflow, blah, blah, blah. This process has a ton of names. I'm sure that many people on this call are familiar with this. The purpose of this diagram is to craft and track each step of a person's experience so that the experience as a whole is designed for their enjoyment with their needs at the center of your marketing activity. See, we've populated the journey with the tools or the platforms we know will reach the previous persona. We're going to presume that your audience's first contact wasn't through email. They may have been on social, saw an ad, they may have seen an article that mentions you, or just did a simple Google search. But once they sign up for something or give you their email any other way, you can use email marketing to communicate with them throughout the rest of the journey. So once we place these tools on there, next, we place what our key performance indicators are, our KPIs, the things that we're held responsible for each tactic, so we can know quickly if we're doing well in that area. For instance, when somebody's in the research phase and they're just learning about your organization, judging how your social media audience has grown, how your email audiences have grown. That's a great way to determine that you're reaching people that are truly interested in what you have to offer. Now, email marketing has its own range of KPIs that you'll use, and I'll go over those shortly. But finally, we're going to go a step further and design out the entire customer experience. How can we use each stage as an opportunity to do something that our audience thinks is remarkable? We're going to go beyond like generic communication or what we like to call noise to create something that's both unique and tailored to the interests of that particular audience, that particular persona. For example, if we know that the persona that we're targeting is a mother or a parent, then a cutest baby photo competition, or an online itinerary builder that allows the parent to kind of create their own stay based on the stuff that you provide that may work for a family. But having things at each step of the way that's designed for that one particular persona. You know, things like scavenger hunts or games that people can easily or comfortably engage in can be a big help for first-time visitors to a new place. Depending on the complexity of your organization or the length of your sales cycle or simply the personalities of your personas, this can be either more serious or more complex or could even be a little simpler. Um, but increased complexity is fine since a lot of the work you can do at each stage of the journey can be either automated or used over and over without developing new pieces for each opportunity. And we're going to go over automation in some pretty decent length here in a minute. But what we're creating here that is like fertile ground for our email marketing campaign, it's a customer-centric experience. It takes into account what we know has changed about our customers, what's unique about customers, and puts their desire for trust, as well as any nuances we need to consider, at the center of our marketing and at the top of our minds when we're communicating with them. Next, your content needs to speak their language. In this exercise, we're using the voice and tone for hospitality or tourism should be upbeat and somewhat casual, but for many B2B or professional association emails, the language will need to lean to a little more professional. Once you have your language dialed in, then you set your goals or KPIs for email specifically. There are two main types of KPIs that we look at here. We have activity, which is typically in percentages, and financial, which is obviously in dollar signs. Things like open rate, click-throughs, and subscribes are important to look at from day to day, but what really matters for us as an agency, since we have to show how email has impacted the bottom line, is financial. So we look at revenue per subscriber, revenue per email, and to do so, we just simply divide revenue by number of email or subscribers and work on increasing that final number over time. So now you have a content strategy. Now it's time to look at the structure of the emails themselves. The most overlooked part of an email is, at least in my mind, the most important. It's your subject line. If you don't get your subject line right, nothing else matters because your email isn't going to get opened. To make a great subject line, you need to create a blend of curiosity and a what's in it for me to entice people to open the email. That's usually the best formula. You have what the benefit is of the content, and to create a little bit of curiosity. Don't give everything away in the subject line. Some tips for a great subject line. 1, keep it short, around 9 words in length. Now, of course, like it and to and the, doesn't have to count as a word, but you have a rough idea of how long an email should be. Try to keep it under 9 words. Next, don't over sensationalize your subject lines. Don't make it misleading, and don't make it disappointing, because you'll only have the opportunity to do that to someone once, and you mislead or disappoint them, and you may never see them again. Third, inspire a sense of urgency. Not necessarily a sense of alarm, but a sense of urgency. Make it time sensitive. If you have a particular promotion or an offer that's going, don't let the promotion run too long. Don't run it for like 60 days. Research has shown that the best window for promotion is typically 2 weeks, because 2 weeks can be here and gone before you know it. People understand that, and they'll typically act upon getting the email. One great approach is to ask a question, and because asking a question, of course, is usually followed by an answer. It's a great way to pique curiosity, and also a great way to get a dialogue started. And finally, avoid spammy lines. Don't use caps in all caps in your emails. Don't Don't try to push free. If take a look at your subject line, and if you wouldn't open it, don't use it. Next, when they do open the email, you want to make your copy succinct and to the point. People like to read what they want to read. They don't like to read in order to get excited about something. So you'll see here that these email examples, they were plucked from a great reference site, reallygoodemails.com. And these emails, they only contain like a few lines of text. Your copy should get to the point and work under the assumption that people aren't going to want to spend a lot of time on your email. What you may also notice in these emails is that it's pretty clear what the sender wants you to do, which brings us to our next tip. Make the path forward obvious. Ideally, your email should have one message and one desired action. Don't hide that action in a text link that they have to hunt for. And don't expect that action to be a reply back to you, because the recipient often isn't ready to talk to someone yet. Send them to a landing page made specifically for the campaign. This keeps them under your brand's umbrella and allows you to continue the narrative and encourage them to take some small action, right? Like a tip sheet download or a map for that scavenger hunt. It's something that's non-committal in their minds, but allows you to grow your brand in their minds. All right, so that's content and email structure. It's pretty long. Next, I'd like to talk a bit about how you can use your platform to work harder for you and help you make a more personal connection with each person in your audience. Every email platform offers you the ability to break your audience down into lists, but too many times, seriously, we see them used the wrong way. We see stuff like lists by date, the date that they uploaded the list, when that date really isn't significant in any way, or some other type of like arbitrary purpose. You're wasting a very powerful feature of your marketing platform that way. If instead you created segments based on those personas that we talked about, then you can easily communicate at any point on a really individual level. And on the screen here, there are a ton of ways to segment your audience, and there are a ton more, but you probably only have a handful of criteria that really matters to your organization, and that's totally fine. Having a lot of data is great, but you don't need all of it in order to make an effective campaign. In your email marketing platform, you should see a feature similar to this, which is how MailChimp does it. If you've captured the data about your contacts over time, then you can start to sort out segments and save them by that data. It may not be much to start. Say you can find people that have opened all of your last 5 emails, or people located in a certain zip code just to start. That'll give you an idea over time of the type of data that you want to gather moving forward. And then as you get that, you'll be allowed to segment even further. I want to share this email that I got a couple weeks ago. It shows how much you can customize an email based on the data that you get. The more details you get about your audience, the more the platform will let you add little code snippets. So you can put that data into the email template, which allows you to personalize each email as if it was only sent to one person. This is impressive. Okay, so yes, first name. We get blast emails with our first names in them all the time. Okay, fine. But to have a note, to have like a column of data in your database that populates with a certain type of a certain quality, like nice work on the quarantine beard. Well, first, it's not really nice work on the quarantine beard. I look like I make my own shoes. But anyway, I digress. There's a place to add your company name. There's unlimited flexibility when it comes to creating the initial template, putting those little code hooks in, pulling in information from the database, and having very, very personal emails sent over to you. This can all be done with automation. It's super impressive. Now, next, and something that's a bit of a rabbit hole, and I'll tread lightly, is automation. Let's pretend that someone signs up for your newsletter this afternoon. They immediately get an autoresponder, which is not necessarily impressive. The autoresponder points them to a landing page. And based on their actions on that page, whether they signed up for something, whether they didn't go to it at all, they get a different email a couple days later. Based on their action to that email, they get another relevant email a couple days later, and so on. But what if someone signs up tomorrow morning? Well, with automation, they'll get the same content at the same cadence of a couple days without you having to interact with every single content. And it's predetermined by how they signed up. By that I mean, when they sign up for a newsletter and they have, you have a couple checkboxes and what they might be interested in, that determines what segment they go to, and that determines the type of content they get in their specific automation. And if it seems confusing, trust me, it gets worse. It could be a lot of initial content and setup, but to know that your contacts are all being followed up with content they care about, in their voice, on their schedule, it can save you a ton of time and confusion in the long run, and you would be optimizing your engagement. And the impression of your brand in the minds of your audience is going to be as high as it possibly can. Now, in your platform, once again, this is MailChimp. Setting up your automation is actually pretty simple once you get started. It's based on an if-then type of logic. If they take this action, then give them this content. If they click this link, then give them this content, and so on. So that's a quick overview of segmentation automation. But by this point, you have the tools to develop your strategy, your own approach, how to start gathering the data you need, formulating content ideas. And now let's take a quick look at lists. Now, list health is critical because too many spammy emails or too few opened emails, and you are doomed to the spam folders. So be careful about what you send out. Quality is always more important than quantity. To manage your list properly, first, make sure that you cut your bounces out regularly. With every email that you send out to a platform, you get a report that tells you what your hard bounces, soft bounces are. In pretty much all cases, if you're getting hard bounces, take them off your list because that email address is now pretty much dead. Soft bounces could be from a number of different things. It could be that the security on that particular email server is pretty high and won't allow a lot of bulk emails. It could very well be that your domain has been blacklisted. So go through your soft bounces, take a look and see what the main cause of those are. Your hard bounces that's pretty self-explanatory. You can just cut those right out. Next, don't be afraid to create small segments. If you only have a segment with like 20 people in it, if it's a niche industry, then 20 people is fine. It doesn't have to, your segments don't have to be bloated in order for them to be manageable. As I said before, quality is far more important than frequency. It's far more important than quantity. If you have an email newsletter and you typically send it out once a month, but 1 month comes where you don't really have much to talk about and it's going to be kind of a weak email, skip it. It's more important that you're sending stuff that people care about instead of you just sending emails for the sake of sending emails. Next, use Optin Forms. Make sure that they're visible on your website. And by visible, I don't mean hide them in your footer. I mean, make it visible on your contact page, maybe sidebars of pages on your website. Try to create as many opportunities for people to sign in as possible. Now, when you use opt-in forms, I think I referenced it a minute ago, but it's good to have not just put your email address here, because that's all you're going to know, and you're not going to have really much data to go with. Instead, you can configure a lot of your well, a lot of email marketing platforms have like a builder that allow you to go step by step without having to code or anything to kind of create your opt-in form. At least have add a set of checkboxes for what they may be interested in, because that will at the very least allow you to put them into a segment to get started. And finally, I mean, this kind of goes without saying, but use a platform. Don't send out newsletters through Outlook. I thought that that it was like standard practice for somebody to use Constant Contact or MailChimp or something like that. But I got a message from a business owner a few weeks ago asking if it was still okay to send emails out by BCCing everyone on your list, and I thought that was dead. Don't do that. Please, please, please don't do that. You're missing out on a lot of the reporting that you get on a platform. Your emails are more professional, and you also have all emails that go out through platforms have opt out and unsubscribe options, which is kind of a legal requirement. And finally, I've been asked over the years about buying lists, buying industry lists, and there are a lot of companies that sell them. We've never bought one, and since they're really just lists of people that have no idea who you are, or probably much less interested in what you have to say, it's not going to do you any good. So please never ever buy a contact list. One big question that we're asked pretty often, I want to make sure that I included in this, is, so when should I send emails? And there is no like definite, this is the time you should send it every single week, yada yada yada, because it works for every single business, period, because that's just not going to work. It's not an exact science, but this can provide at least a good starting point for your campaigns. But you should refine from there. Generally, the most effective days to send emails are first or Tuesdays, then Thursdays, and followed by Wednesdays. Try to avoid Friday emails, because we're all checked out by then. But those seem to, across the board, on average, have higher engagement rates. Times are a bit surprising too, but as I said, this is a general rule. Your campaigns are going to need some attention to find out the right times for them. The most effective on average is usually 10 a.m. followed by 8 p.m., right after dinner, 2 p.m. right after lunch, and yes, 6 a.m., which is just like at least an hour before I wake up. We sent out an email for this webinar yesterday, which is a Tuesday, but we sent it out at 4 p.m. And it's not one of these generally recommended times, but we've seen from our own data that 4 p.m. gets us, really high open and click-through rates, more than it does, say, 2 or 8 p.m. So that's a lot, I know. But I wanted this to be a comprehensive guide to improving your email campaigns. I want to close with one last slide here, and that is create a checklist for your email marketing. We create these internally for our clients so that simple errors don't slip through. Of course, of course, write your content before you mock up the email. We use Google Docs for this so that we can easily share among our team and with our clients. After you've laid out the email, double check your copy. Look at things like dates and times. Make sure you put the right time zone on there if you needed to. Check your capitalization, your italics, and so on. Check your links. Make sure your links work. If you duplicated, if you just replicated an old email and to create a new email, some of those links may have stuck. Make sure that they've all changed. Your from address, which is the name that shows up there, or your reply to address. Make sure that if you want your email to be sent on behalf of a person, that the person's name there. If an organization, the organization's name is there. Your subject line. I mean, I've gone, I went over this at length earlier, but errors in your subject line, absolutely the worst. So make sure you triple check those. Send yourself a test and check every piece of every one of those four again. But also check your pre-header text. When you get an email, you see the subject line and then that little blurb beneath it. Yeah, it's an often overlooked component of email, but it could make all the difference as far as your open rates are concerned. Look for design flaws. Every email platform provides you with a preview option so you can see if things are a little wonky. Get a fresh set of eyes on your email. Send a test to a colleague. A different perspective can help find sneaky mistakes that would otherwise elude you. Double check your list and segments. Make sure the list size and segments are right. Once this checklist is cleared, then you are green flagged and ready to go. With that, I mean, I'll take any questions that you have. But if you have questions that may pop up in the future, here's my contact information. I never charge for a conversation. And I'll hold, see if there are any questions on it. Okay, well, as I said, my contact information is here. Thank you all for sticking around. I hope you were able to get a lot from this, and have a great rest of your day.